Greetings to everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I want to share a story with you. My name is Denis. I never expected to find myself in such a situation, but life knows how to throw surprises at the most unexpected moments. This is a story about betrayal that happened during the hardest period of my life. I am an ordinary businessman. I had a stable home and, as I believed, a strong marriage. My wife Evelyn and I had lived together for 6 years. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but if someone had asked me back then about my trust in her, I would have answered affirmatively, without a shadow of a doubt. However, trust is a fragile thing. It is built over years, but destroyed in mere moments. The thing is, I had just lost my mother. She died of cancer. It was an irreplaceable loss, the most painful possible. She was not just a parent to me, but a best friend. After my father's death, my mother raised me alone, and from that moment, she became my whole world. She didn't just play the role of a parent. She was my protector, my teacher, and my main support. My mother was the thread that held our family together, not letting us break even during the harshest times. After the wedding, I didn't move far away to stay close to her. Evelyn and I lived in the same city, just a 45-minute drive away. I tried to visit her as often as possible, and when I couldn't, she would call me just to see how I was doing. And then, she was gone. Preparing for the funeral exhausted me, physically and mentally. No one teaches you how many things fall on you after the death of a loved one. Paperwork, phone calls, endless small details. It all turned into one continuous, blurry haze. People constantly came and went from the house, expressed condolences, asked questions, and expected answers. And through it all, Evelyn walked with me. She helped with the organization, answered phone calls, and made sure I ate something, even though I had no appetite at all. I was literally drowning in grief, and she seemed to be my only salvation, keeping me afloat. At least, that's what I thought at the time. I couldn't even imagine that the person I trusted most in the world would wound me in a way that even my mother's death could not. The day of the burial became a real whirlwind of emotions. Many people gathered, relatives, friends, neighbors, and even those I barely knew. They all came to honor her memory. My mother was deeply involved in the community, always extending a helping hand to those in need. And now, in her absence, everyone wanted to express their gratitude. I should have been focusing on saying goodbye, but grief does not allow such luxury. Instead, I nodded absent-mindedly, forced out smiles, shook hands, and listened to words of consolation about what a wonderful woman she was, and that she was now in a better place. Inside, I felt only complete numbness. The reality of her departure had not yet fully sunk in. I kept expecting her to walk in any moment and say that everything was all right, remind me to eat. But all around me, only the voices of people who could never fill the void she left were heard. Amidst all this chaos, Evelyn approached me and quietly, almost hesitantly, whispered, "Honey, I need to drive home for a little while. I got my dress dirty and I don't want to walk around like this all day." I barely processed her words. For the first time in several hours, I looked at her carefully and noticed a small stain on the hem of her dress. She looked embarrassed. I sighed and nodded briefly. "All right, just don't be too long." She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, promised to return soon, got into our car, and drove away. At that moment, I suspected nothing. I had no reason to. I did not know that this excuse and that short moment would become the beginning of the end. I was so absorbed in conversations and the endless stream of condolences that I hardly noticed how much time had passed since Evelyn left. People came and went, each sharing memories of my mother, promising support. I thanked them, trying to grasp the scale of their words, but my thoughts were far away. At some point, I remembered that I needed one thing from home, a small but important detail that I had forgotten to take earlier. It wasn't a necessity, but Evelyn could easily bring it when she returned. I took out my phone and dialed her number, expecting a quick answer. Instead, the call went straight to voicemail. Her phone was turned off. I frowned, but at first didn't attach much importance to it. I thought the battery had died, or she had left it on the charger while changing clothes. I sent a short message and returned to the guests. My uncle was telling stories about my mother's kindness. I listened, or at least tried to listen, nodding politely. Time passed strangely, sometimes slowing down, sometimes speeding up, making it difficult to keep track. Before I knew it, 2 hours had flown by. I looked around, expecting to see Evelyn in a clean dress, perhaps with the thing I had asked for. but she was nowhere to be found. That's when it hit me. Not only could I not reach her, but she still hadn't returned. Checking my phone again, I saw no messages or missed calls. My stomach tightened unpleasantly as I dialed her number again. The result was the same. Anxiety began to fill my chest. I tried to push away dark thoughts. Evelyn couldn't just disappear. There must be a reasonable explanation. But another hour passed, and there was still no word from her, and it became harder and harder for me to cope with the growing unease. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard. To get the thing I needed, and to understand why my wife hadn't returned, I needed to find a way to get home. Something clearly didn't add up. My sister, who was sitting nearby, noticed my state. She saw me constantly checking my phone. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I lied and said yes, then asked for the keys to her car, saying I needed to run home quickly. She hesitated for a moment, offered to send someone in my place, but I insisted. When I sat in the driver's seat and pulled out of the yard, my thoughts were racing. I didn't know what I was about to face. At the house, everything looked as usual. The porch light turned on automatically, illuminating the front steps. I took a deep breath, turned off the engine, and got out of the car. Silence reigned inside the house. Unlocking the front door, I cautiously walked down the hallway. The sound of my footsteps echoed off the floor as I moved toward our bedroom. My mind was still trying to find an excuse for her absence. Maybe she changed clothes and decided to lie down. Or she took a shower. Perhaps she just lost track of time. But when I approached the bedroom door, I heard a faint moan from the other side. I pushed the door open, not knowing what I would see, and my heart stopped. She was there, half undressed, in bed with another man. Time seemed to stand still. My mind refused to process what I was seeing, but my body understood everything. Cold disbelief pierced me, my breath caught. The man next to her was the same colleague she had introduced me to this morning, the same one who came to honor my mother's memory at her funeral. Just a few hours ago, he stood before me, shook my hand, and muttered words of sympathy. And now he was in my bed with my wife. A used condom on the nightstand became indisputable proof that this was not an accident. They had already had their pleasure. They had planned it all, confident that I would not return home. They thought I was too devastated by grief to think clearly. Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. She frantically grabbed the sheets, trying to cover herself. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She wasn't expecting me. She miscalculated. The more I realized what I was seeing, the more my heart hurt, as if pierced by something sharp. I didn't move, didn't shout, didn't attack the guy. I just stood and watched the scene. My wife, desperately clutching the sheet, and the person who had defiled my home and my bed. My heart wasn't pounding. My hands weren't shaking. In that moment, I felt nothing but a devastating emptiness. I took out my phone and silently took a picture. Then another, and then filmed a short video. Part of me still needed proof, evidence that I wasn't hallucinating, and that this wasn't some nightmare from which I was about to wake up. I wanted to capture the moment when my marriage finally died, the moment I saw Evelyn's true face. She gasped sharply, jumped up, her eyes filled with wild panic. She reached out to me, saying, "Honey, it's not what you think. Please, let me explain." Her voice was trembling, full of despair, but I only heard lies in it. Not what I think? What exactly was I supposed to think? That they were just lying in bed half-dressed, discussing world peace? That the object on the nightstand was just a souvenir? Or that she somehow tripped and fell on him? I couldn't care less what excuse she was going to make up. I had seen enough. In that second, everything inside me broke. Without uttering a single word, I turned around and walked out of that room. I clearly heard her panic as she jumped out of bed, heard her bare feet slap against the floor as she ran after me. "Denis, wait! Please, let's just talk." Her voice trembled, but I didn't slow down. I didn't even turn around to look at her. When I stepped outside into the fresh air, she tried to grab my arm, hoping to stop me, but I shook off her hand with a sharp motion. My decision was already made, and non-negotiable. Before getting into the car, I turned to her one last time. My voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "Don't even think about showing up at my family's house. If I see you there, I swear, I will expose you in front of everyone present." I saw the blood drain from her face. She froze, her mouth opening and closing, as if she was desperately trying to find words of justification, but couldn't. A primal terror was frozen in her eyes. It wasn't just the fear of losing me, but the fear of the inevitable consequences that the revealed truth would bring. I didn't waste another second of my life on her. Getting into my sister's car, I started the engine and drove away. I left her standing there, half-dressed and choking in the chaos she herself had created. The drive back to my parents' house passed in almost complete silence, apart from a short conversation with my lawyer. My head was a complete mess, thoughts tangled into a furious knot that I wasn't yet able to unravel. When I drove into the yard, I saw my relatives standing in small groups, continuing to talk quietly and mourn. They had no idea what had just happened. I got out of the car, took a deep breath, and walked into the house. If anyone noticed that something was wrong with me, they didn't show it. Most likely, they thought it was a natural reaction to my mother's death. To some extent, they weren't wrong. That day, I lost two close people. One passed away, and the other betrayed me. I forced myself to sit down next to my uncles, nod, listen to their stories, and accept the endless condolences. But inside, I felt completely detached from everything happening around me. My body was there, but my mind was far away, already calculating every next step. Evelyn's calls started coming in just a few minutes after I left her. First one missed call, then a second, a third. Soon, text messages began pouring in. "Dennis, I beg you, answer. Honey, let's talk. Please, don't tell anyone. I made a terrible mistake. Let's fix this." I didn't even open them. I just watched the notifications pile up on the screen, then put my phone on silent and slipped it into my pocket. She could beg all she wanted. I was not going to listen to her anymore. When the last guest left the house and silence fell, I excused myself from my family and went to my old room. Sitting down at the desk, I opened my laptop and began securing my assets. If Evelyn imagined that I would sit around crying while she figured out how to weasel her way out of this situation, she was in for a very unpleasant awakening. First, I logged into all my bank accounts. When we got married, all the accounts were in my name. I gave her access, but she was never the primary owner, and that situation needed to change immediately. I changed every password, completely cutting her off from the funds she had been accustomed to having free access to. The joint account didn't concern me. There was almost nothing left in it. I left it as is, like a symbolic tombstone over the illusion of trust that once existed between us. Next, I took care of the business accounts and insurance policies. There was a time when I saw Evelyn as my future and my family. That's why, after the wedding, I listed her as a beneficiary in case of my death. Now that came to an end. Just a few clicks of the mouse, and her name was erased from every document that had once promised her financial stability. She had already taken too much from me. Faith, respect, inner peace. She would get nothing more from me. After finishing my business, I leaned back in my chair, not taking my eyes off the monitor. The messages on my phone kept coming, and each new one was more desperate than the last. I didn't care. The next day would be the beginning of the end for her. The next morning, Evelyn probably woke up hoping that she still had time to come up with the perfect excuse or somehow influence the situation. But she was deeply mistaken. By the time she stepped over the threshold of her office, she had already lost everything. I had made my move the previous evening. I contacted a lawyer on the way to my parents' house, right after catching her with that worthless man. I didn't need time to think it over. I didn't need a week to process my feelings. I clearly understood what I had to do. When my lawyer tried to claim that preparing the divorce papers would take at least 7 days, I interrupted him. I set a condition. Either it would be ready by morning, or I would find another specialist to handle all my legal and business matters. After that, he stopped arguing. Money has a persuasive power. And so, early in the morning, a courier entered the office where Evelyn worked, with an envelope bearing her name. It was the divorce papers. I can only guess what she felt when she opened it. She had no idea that this was only the first blow I had struck. Days passed. I did not contact her or see her. But I didn't stop there. She had trampled on my trust, subjected me to humiliation, and treated my grief as if it meant nothing. I was not going to let her quietly go on with her life, while I had to piece mine back together. I decided to act on a larger scale and prepared the next batch of deliveries. This time, it was the unvarnished truth about who she really was. In each package were the photos I had taken that night, undeniable evidence of her infidelity. I sent them to her employer. If she wanted to pass off her lover as just a colleague, let her try working with that kind of reputation now. I also sent the proof to her family and friends, so she wouldn't have the chance to twist the story and portray herself as the victim. No lies, no tricks, just the dry, irrefutable facts of her actions. I knew exactly when the packages were delivered, because she started blowing up my phone, frantically trying to minimize the damage. I didn't answer the calls. Then came the messages. "Dennis, please stop. We need to talk. Honey, I'm so sorry. I was confused. I beg you, give me a chance to explain. Dennis, please. My relatives are calling. They know everything. My boss saw the photos. I'm going to get fired. Don't do this to me." I remained silent. She could ask for anything, but there was nothing left to save. One final matter remained, a decision I reached a few days after catching Evelyn in bed with another man. The house we lived in, our shared nest, furnished after the wedding, was not an ordinary building. It was a wedding gift from my mother, a symbol of her boundless love, her blessing, and her hopes for our future. And Evelyn had desecrated that symbol. She didn't just cheat on me. She didn't just betray our union. She showed blatant disrespect for my mother's memory. She turned that house into a backdrop for her affair, poisoning everything it represented. I would never allow her to remain within those walls. The decision was made instantly. I am selling this house. Without wasting a moment, I contacted a real estate agent and ordered the property to be put on the market immediately. The situation was favorable, and given the value of the house, I knew the sale wouldn't take long. The money didn't interest me. I just wanted to get rid of that place. I wanted her gone from there. As soon as the sale announcement was published, I made sure Evelyn saw it. She hadn't stopped bombarding my phone with calls before, but when she realized what I was doing, she had a hysterical breakdown. "Dennis, I beg you. You can't sell the house. Where will I live? It's our home." No, it wasn't. Not anymore. She imagined she could destroy everything down to its foundations and still keep a quiet haven for herself. She thought she could betray me and still have a roof over her head. But she was deeply mistaken. By the time she realized I was serious, it was already too late to do anything. The messages didn't stop. Evelyn called and wrote every day, and her desperation grew with each ignored attempt of mine to communicate. At first, her letters were full of remorse and apologies. "Dennis, please. I know I hurt you, but let's talk. I made a mistake. I swear it meant nothing. I still love you. You don't have to do this. Let's fix this. I beg you." But I had nothing to say to her. There was nothing to fix. Over time, the tone of her messages shifted from pleading to anger and irritation. "So that's it? You're just ready to erase everything? You think you're punishing me, but you're just behaving petty. Fine. Do what you want. I don't need you." And then, just as suddenly, the anger evaporated, giving way again to guilt and despair. "Dennis, forgive me. I beg you. Just talk to me one last time." I never reached out. I don't know what's happening in her life now, and to be honest, I don't care at all. She made her choice, and now she has to face the consequences. As for me, I finally found freedom. Sitting in the silence, I felt a long-awaited peace in my soul. Not because I have fully recovered from what happened. The pain of loss and the bitterness of betrayal do not disappear overnight, but because I have taken back control of my life. If I learned any lesson from this entire story, it is that retribution does not always come on its own. Sometimes, you have to become its instrument. Evelyn thought she could lie, cheat, and go on living peacefully while I drowned in suffering. She thought she would destroy my world and still keep the comfort of our home, our familiar life, and my forgiveness. But she was wrong. Betrayal reveals people's true nature, but it also helps you understand who you really are. And I realize that I am not the kind of person who lets others wipe their feet on him and forgives treachery. This is my story. I hope it serves as a lesson for those who think they are obligated to forgive cheaters. You are not. You owe them nothing. Thank you for your attention.